She inherited an apartment, got a fresh start, and a neighbor who seems designed to test her patience. He's got that always-winning smile and a comment ready to fire. She's got pride, poise, and an even sharper comeback. But there's one tiny, fluffy mastermind running the whole disaster, a poodle who decided to date a golden retriever. The lobby of Manhattan's most exclusive residential building gleamed under crystal chandeliers as Claire Morgan shifted her weight from one foot to the other, trying to maintain her dignity while Bella tugged enthusiastically at her leash. The small poodle had suddenly become fascinated by something near the elevator, her delicate paws dancing on the marble floor. "Bella, please," Claire whispered, adjusting the leather portfolio under her arm. "We've been here 3 days. Can we at least pretend to be sophisticated?" Bella ignored her completely, letting out an excited yip that echoed through the pristine lobby. Claire felt her cheeks flush as the doorman glanced their way with barely concealed amusement. Perfect. Just perfect. She'd moved into this building hoping for a fresh start, a quiet sanctuary where she could rebuild her life and focus on her career. Instead, her dog was determined to announce their presence like they were auditioning for a reality show. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Claire's breath caught in her throat. A man stepped out, tall, devastatingly handsome, wearing a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But it wasn't the suit that made her pulse quicken. It was the massive golden retriever walking beside him, with the kind of regal composure that suggested he knew exactly how magnificent he was. The dog's coat gleamed like spun gold under the chandelier light. Bella went absolutely berserk. The poodle launched herself forward with such force that Claire nearly dropped her portfolio. "Bella, no!" But Bella had no intention of listening. She strained against the leash, her entire body wiggling with joy as she tried to reach the golden retriever. To Claire's mortification, the larger dog seemed equally entranced, pulling his owner forward with surprising determination. The man's eyebrows rose in amusement as he looked down at the canine chaos unfolding before them. "Max, seriously? You're supposed to be dignified. If this story is touching your heart, show your support. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Every action helps us keep bringing you new stories full of emotion." Max, apparently, had other priorities. The golden retriever was now doing a playbow, tail wagging so hard his entire back end swayed, while Bella responded with enthusiastic spins and yips that would have been adorable if Claire wasn't dying of embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," Claire stammered, trying to pull Bella back. "She's usually not like this. She's normally very well behaved and—" "Is she, though?" The man's voice was deep, smooth, and carried an unmistakable hint of amusement. He looked at Claire for the first time, and she felt the full force of his gaze, sharp grey eyes that seemed to see right through her professional exterior. A slow smile curved his lips. "Because, from where I'm standing, your dog looks like she's never met a stranger she didn't want to befriend." Claire bristled. Something about his tone, that knowing smirk, made her want to contradict him just on principle. "Well, your dog doesn't seem much better at self-control. Max is young at heart," he said, not missing a beat. "It's part of his charm." "How convenient. Does that excuse work for you too?" The words escaped before Claire could stop them. She immediately regretted the barb. This was her neighbor, possibly an important one given the penthouse elevator button she'd noticed, but something about his casual arrogance made her defenses snap into place. Instead of being offended, the man's smile widened. "Oh, I don't need excuses. I'm delightful." "Delusional is more like it," Claire muttered, just loud enough for him to hear. His laugh was unexpected, genuine and warm, transforming his entire face. "Thomas Bradley," he said, extending his free hand while Max continued his enthusiastic courtship of Bella. "Penthouse, top floor. I'd shake your hand properly, but Max seems to have other plans." Claire hesitated, then took his hand briefly. His grip was firm, warm, and sent an unwelcome jolt through her system. "Claire Morgan. I just moved into 14B. Ah, the mysterious new neighbor. The building's been buzzing about you." "Buzzing?" Claire frowned. "Why would anyone buzz about me?" Beautiful woman, living alone, inherits a multi-million-dollar apartment from a distant relative nobody knew existed? Thomas's eyes sparkled with mischief. "That's prime gossip material in a place like this." Claire's jaw tightened. I didn't realize my personal life was entertainment for the building. Don't worry, he said, his tone infuriatingly casual. I told them you were probably boring. Excuse me? I mean, architects usually are. All those right angles and blueprints. Not much room for spontaneity. Claire stared at him, momentarily speechless. Was he seriously insulting her profession? And what do you do that's so fascinating? Let me guess. Investment banking, hedge funds, something equally soul-crushing. Financial markets, actually. Very soul-crushing. I crush souls daily. He didn't seem remotely bothered by her sarcasm. If anything, he looked delighted. It's quite satisfying. I bet it is, Claire said dryly. You seem like the type who enjoys crushing things. Only my competition, and apparently your assumptions about me. Before Claire could formulate a sufficiently cutting response, Bella made her move. The little poodle, tired of being restrained, slipped her collar with the skill of a seasoned escape artist and launched herself at Max. The golden retriever responded with pure joy, and suddenly 2 dogs were running circles around their owners, tangling them together with leashes. Claire stumbled forward, colliding directly into Thomas's chest. His free arm came around her waist instinctively, steadying her. For a moment they were impossibly close, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody, close enough to see flecks of blue in his grey eyes. This is a metaphor, isn't it? Thomas murmured, his voice lower now, his breath warm against her ear. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. For what? For how tangled up we're about to get. She pushed away from him, her face burning. In your dreams. Oh, you're already there, he said with that infuriating smirk. Claire untangled herself from the leash with as much dignity as she could muster, scooped up Bella, and marched toward the elevator without another word. But she could feel his eyes on her back, could practically hear the amusement in his silence. As the elevator doors closed, she looked down at Bella, who gazed up at her with innocent brown eyes. Traitor, Claire whispered. Bella wagged her tail. In the lobby, Thomas watched the elevator ascend with a grin he couldn't quite suppress. Max sat beside him, looking longingly at the closed doors. I know, buddy, Thomas said, scratching behind his dog's ears. I know exactly how you feel. This was going to be interesting. Claire spent the entire weekend replaying the lobby encounter in her mind, each replay making her more annoyed with herself. Why had she let that arrogant man get under her skin? She'd handled difficult clients, demanding professors, and an absolute disaster of an ex-boyfriend. One smug billionaire with a perfect smile shouldn't rattle her this much. He's just a neighbor, she told Bella on Sunday night, brushing the poodle's silky coat. We'll exchange polite nods in the elevator and that's it. Professional, distant, boring, just like he said. Bella tilted her head, clearly unconvinced. I'm serious. Tomorrow I start the biggest project of my career, and I'm not letting anything distract me, especially not some arrogant... She stopped herself, taking a deep breath. Nope, not even thinking about him. Monday morning arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made Claire change her outfit 3 times. She finally settled on a burgundy blazer over a cream silk blouse and tailored black pants. Professional, confident, successful. The woman in the mirror looked like someone who had her life together. The woman in the mirror was a liar, but that was fine. Bradley Financial Group's headquarters occupied the top 15 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown. Claire had researched the company extensively, one of the most successful investment firms in the country, known for aggressive strategies and impressive returns. Landing their contract to redesign their executive offices was a career-defining moment. The receptionist directed her to the 42nd floor. Conference room A, Mr. Bradley is running a few minutes late, but the team is waiting. Claire's heels clicked against marble as she walked down the corridor, her portfolio clutched professionally under her arm. She could do this. She'd prepared for weeks, knew every detail of her proposal, had backup plans for the backup plans. The conference room was already occupied by 4 people in expensive suits, all reviewing documents. A woman in her 50s looked up with a warm smile. You must be Ms. Morgan. I'm Patricia Simmons, head of operations. Please have a seat, Mr. Bradley should be here any moment. Claire settled into a chair, arranging her materials on the table. Her hands were steady, her breathing was controlled. Everything was fine. The door opened. Thomas Bradley walked in, and Claire's entire world tilted sideways. For one frozen moment, they stared at each other in mutual shock. His eyes widened fractionally, the first time she'd seen him look anything other than completely composed. Claire felt her carefully constructed professional demeanor crack like thin ice. "You," they said simultaneously. The team exchanged confused glances. Patricia looked between them with raised eyebrows. "You two know each other?" "We're neighbors," Thomas said smoothly, recovering faster than Claire. That infuriating smirk was already sliding back into place. What a delightful coincidence. Delightful. Claire wanted to throw her portfolio at his perfectly groomed head. "Ms. Morgan is the architect we hired for the renovation," Patricia explained to Thomas. "Is she?" Thomas moved to the head of the table, his movements casual, controlled, but Claire caught the gleam in his eyes. He was enjoying this. "How fortunate," Claire found her voice. "Mr. Bradley, I wasn't aware you were the Bradley and Bradley Financial Group. Most people figure it out from the name," he said, settling into his chair with the easy confidence of someone who owned everything in sight. "But then again, you did think I was boring." The team looked even more confused now. Claire felt heat creep up her neck. "I never said—" "You implied it." Thomas opened a folder, his expression now purely professional, but that subtle smile lingered at the corners of his mouth. "Shall we begin? I'm eager to see what someone with such strong opinions has planned for our space." Oh, he was going to be impossible. Claire could see it in his eyes, in the way he sat back in his chair like a king on a throne. This wasn't just her boss. This was her neighbor, the man who'd already proven he could get under her skin with a single sentence, and now he had professional authority over her. She was doomed. But Claire Morgan hadn't gotten this far by backing down from challenges. She straightened her spine, met his gaze directly, and smiled with every ounce of professionalism she possessed. "Of course, Mr. Bradley. Let me show you what real vision looks like." For the next hour, Claire presented her proposal with flawless precision. She walked them through layouts, material choices, lighting concepts, and sustainable design elements. She answered every question, countered every concern, and refused to let Thomas's presence throw her off balance. And through it all, Thomas watched her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. He asked pointed questions, intelligent ones that showed he actually understood architecture, and occasionally made comments that walked the fine line between professional critique and personal challenge. "Interesting choice," he said, when she proposed an open concept design for the executive floor. "Most people in my position prefer more privacy." "Most people in your position," Claire replied smoothly, "are afraid of transparency. I assumed you'd be different." His eyes glinted with something that might have been respect, or might have been the promise of future torment. "Bold assumption. I'm an architect. We deal in bold structures. And I'm an investor. I deal in calculated risks." He leaned forward, his gaze locked with hers. "The question is, are you worth the investment, Miss Morgan?" The room fell silent. Everyone was watching them now, the tension thick enough to cut. Claire refused to look away. "I guess you'll have to trust your instincts, Mr. Bradley." "My instincts," Thomas said slowly, a smile playing at his lips, "are telling me this is going to be very interesting." When the meeting finally ended, Patricia pulled Claire aside. "That was impressive. Between you and me, I've never seen anyone challenge Mr. Bradley like that. He usually eats consultants for breakfast." "I'm not on the menu," Claire said firmly. Patricia laughed. "That's what they all say. Good luck, Miss Morgan. Something tells me you're going to need it." As Claire gathered her things, Thomas appeared at her elbow. "Elevator?" he asked innocently. "I'll take the stairs. It's 42 floors. Then I'll get my exercise." His laugh followed her all the way to the stairwell. That night, Claire collapsed on her sofa with Bella curled in her lap. Through the wall, she could hear Max's happy barking. "Your boyfriend's owner," Claire told Bella, "is my boss. My insufferable, arrogant, impossibly attractive boss, who I now have to see every day for the next 6 months. Bella licked her face sympathetically. "Yeah," Claire sighed. "We're in trouble." The elevator encounters became a daily ritual of torture, disguised as coincidence. Every morning, without fail, Thomas and Claire found themselves waiting for the elevator at exactly the same time. Claire was convinced he was doing it on purpose. Thomas, lounging against the marble wall with Max sitting obediently beside him, would flash that knowing smile that made her want to simultaneously punch him and kiss that smirk off his face. Not that she was thinking about kissing him. Absolutely not. "Good morning, neighbor," Thomas said on Wednesday, his eyes tracking her movement as she approached. "Love the outfit. Very structured." Claire glanced down at her navy pantsuit. "It's called professional attire. You should try it sometime." "I'm wearing a suit." "I meant the professional part." Max woofed happily at Bella, who responded with an enthusiastic wiggle that made Claire's hold on the leash precarious. The dogs had no concept of their owner's Cold War. "Max misses Bella when we're apart," Thomas said, watching the dogs with what might have been genuine affection. "He paces by the door every evening around 6, waiting for the sound of her collar." Claire felt her heart do something inconvenient. She forced her voice to remain neutral. "Bella does the same thing. It's sweet. Maybe we should arrange playdates." "Maybe we shouldn't." "Afraid you can't resist my charm?" Thomas stepped closer as the elevator arrived. "I promise to behave." "That's what concerns me. You think you're charming. You think I'm not?" Claire stepped into the elevator, refusing to answer. Thomas followed, and suddenly the space felt impossibly small. He smelled like expensive coffee and that woody cologne that was becoming far too familiar. "You know," Thomas said casually, pressing the button for the lobby, "you could just admit you find me attractive and save us both time." "In your dreams, Bradley." "Oh, you're definitely in my dreams, Morgan. Want me to describe them?" Claire's cheeks flamed. "Absolutely not. They're very detailed. Last night you were wearing that burgundy blazer from Monday and stop talking." His laughter filled the elevator, rich and warm. Max and Bella seemed utterly delighted by the exchange, tails wagging in synchronized approval. When the doors opened, Claire practically fled into the lobby. Behind her, she heard Thomas call out, "See you at the office, Ms. Morgan." She was going to kill him. Or kiss him. The jury was still out. The office encounters were even worse. Thomas seemed to have a supernatural ability to appear wherever Claire was working. Reviewing electrical plans in the conference room, Thomas would arrive with important documents he needed to review at that exact table. Inspecting the executive floor layout, Thomas would materialize with questions about spatial dynamics that had nothing to do with architecture and everything to do with watching her squirm. On Thursday afternoon, Claire was measuring the main corridor when Thomas emerged from his office. She straightened, trying to look professional, despite being on her hands and knees with a tape measure. "Need help down there?" Thomas asked, his voice dripping with amusement. "I'm perfectly fine." "You missed a spot." "I did not miss a—" Claire looked where he was pointing and realized he was right. She had missed a section. She hated that he was right. "Thank you," she said through gritted teeth. "My pleasure." Thomas crouched beside her, bringing them to eye level. "You know, this would go faster with 2 people. I work alone." "So I've noticed." Something shifted in his expression. Less teasing, more curious. "Why is that?" "Because people are unreliable." The words came out sharper than Claire intended. Thomas studied her face. "Someone hurt you." It wasn't a question. Claire stood abruptly, putting distance between them. "That's none of your business." "You're right." Thomas rose slowly, his height suddenly intimidating. "But for what it's worth, whoever he was an idiot." Claire blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. Before she could respond, Patricia appeared around the corner. "Mr. Bradley, the Tokyo call is in 5 minutes." "Right. Thanks, Patricia." Thomas gave Claire one last look, something complex and unreadable passing between them, then walked away. Claire stood in the corridor, her heart beating too fast, her skin feeling too warm. She was in so much trouble. Friday evening, Claire was walking Bella in the building's garden when disaster struck. She'd specifically chosen 7 p.m. because Thomas usually walked Max at 6, but apparently the universe hated her because there he was, throwing a tennis ball for Max near the fountain. Claire tried to turn around, but Bella had already spotted her beloved. The poodle took off like a rocket, yanking the leash from Claire's hand. "Bella, no!" But Bella was already launching herself at Max, who caught her mid-leap with the grace of a dog who'd been waiting all week for this moment. They tumbled together into the grass, a tangle of golden fur and happy barks. Claire ran over, horrified. "I'm so sorry. I thought you'd be done by now. I stayed late hoping to run into you." Claire froze. "What?" Thomas's smile was different this time. Less smirk, more genuine. "Max has been miserable, and honestly, so have I. You're miserable because you enjoy torturing me at work. Is that what you think I'm doing? Torturing you? Aren't you?" Thomas stepped closer, and Claire's breath caught. "Claire, I'm trying to spend time with you. I'm just really bad at it." "You're bad at many things," Claire said, but her voice came out softer than intended. "Add it to the list." His eyes searched hers. "Can we start over? Maybe without the insults and defensive posturing? But that's our thing. We could get a new thing." Claire looked down at Max and Bella, who were now lying side by side in perfect contentment. "They make it look so easy. They don't overthink." Thomas's hand lifted, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so tender, it made Claire's chest ache. "Maybe we should try that. Not overthinking isn't really my style." "Mine either, but I'm willing to try if you are." Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression darkened. Unknown number, but she recognized the area code. Her ex. Thomas noticed the change immediately. "Everything okay?" "Fine, I should get Bella inside." "Claire." "Good night, Thomas." She gathered Bella and left before he could see the tears threatening to form. Behind her, she heard Max whine plaintively. In his penthouse later, Thomas paced while Max watched with soulful eyes. "I know, buddy. I made progress and then I lost it somehow." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "She's got walls higher than this building, and I don't know how to climb them without scaring her away." Max woofed sympathetically. "Yeah, thanks for the support." Thomas dropped onto the couch. "The problem is, I actually care what she thinks." "When did that happen?" Through the wall he could hear Bella's faint barking. Then very quietly he heard Claire's voice talking to her dog, the words indistinct, but the tone unmistakably sad. Thomas's chest tightened. Someone had hurt her badly, and he had the sudden overwhelming urge to find out who and make them regret it. But first, he needed to figure out how to get past her defenses without being the arrogant jerk she already thought he was. This was going to be harder than any business deal he'd ever closed, and somehow that made him want it even more. Saturday morning found Claire in her favorite bookstore, desperately trying to find peace among the shelves. After the garden incident with Thomas, she needed space to think, to breathe, to not feel her heart race every time she remembered the way he'd touched her hair. She was browsing the architecture section when she heard a warm, male voice behind her. "Excuse me, is that the new Morrison book on sustainable design?" Claire turned to find a handsome man in his mid-30s, casually dressed in jeans and a sweater, with kind brown eyes and an easy smile. "It is," she said, showing him the cover. "Are you an architect?" "Lawyer, actually, but my best friend keeps boring me with architecture talk, so I figured I should educate myself." He extended his hand. "Justin Reynolds." "Claire Morgan." "Wait, Claire Morgan, the architect?" Justin's smile widened. "You're working on the Bradley financial project, right?" Claire's stomach dropped. "You know about that?" "Thomas won't shut up about it." "Well, about you, specifically." Justin leaned against the bookshelf conspiratorially. "Fair warning, he's my best friend, so I'm legally obligated to gather intelligence." "Intelligence? Like whether you actually hate him as much as he thinks you do, or if you're just really good at hiding the fact that you find him devastatingly attractive." Claire choked on air. "Excuse me?" "See, that reaction tells me everything." Justin looked delighted. "You totally find him attractive. I find him insufferable." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." Justin grabbed a book from the shelf. "Tell you what, my girlfriend is meeting me here in 5 minutes. She's a doctor, brilliant, funny, and she'll absolutely love hearing about how Thomas has finally met someone who doesn't fall at his feet. Want to grab coffee with us?" Claire should have said no. She really should have. But Justin's easy friendliness was disarming, and the idea of having allies in understanding Thomas Bradley was too tempting. "Why not?" she said. 20 minutes later, Claire found herself at a corner cafe with Justin and his girlfriend Naomi, a stunning woman with sharp wit and infectious laughter. "So let me get this straight," Naomi said, stirring her latte. "Thomas Bradley, Manhattan's most eligible bachelor, the man who once made a CEO cry in a negotiation, is reduced to elevator stalking because he doesn't know how to talk to you. He talks to me constantly, Claire protested. He just does it while being incredibly annoying. That's because he likes you, Justin said matter-of-factly. Thomas only goes out of his way to annoy people he finds interesting. Everyone else he ignores. That's a terrible system. He's emotionally stunted, Naomi agreed. Most men are. Justin here once tried to impress me by reciting tax code. Justin shrugged unapologetically. You said you liked intelligence. I liked you despite the tax code, not because of it. Their easy banter made Claire's chest ache with something like longing. This was what a healthy relationship looked like. Teasing without cruelty, comfort without complacency. So, what's your story? Naomi asked gently. Justin mentioned something about an ex? Claire hesitated, then found herself telling them about David, the 2 years together, the plans they'd made, coming home early from a work trip to find him in their bed with her former colleague. The betrayal had shattered something in her that she wasn't sure had fully healed. And now, Claire finished, I'm supposed to trust a man who probably has women throwing themselves at him daily. Thomas isn't David, Justin said seriously. I've known him for 15 years. He's loyal to a fault. His parents' divorce destroyed him. His dad cheated repeatedly. Thomas would never do that to someone he cared about. But does he care about me, or does he just enjoy the chase? With Thomas, it's always been all or nothing. If he's pursuing you this hard, it's because you matter. Naomi reached across the table to squeeze Claire's hand. Give him a chance, and if he screws it up, Justin and I will help you hide the body. Claire laughed despite herself. You two are dangerous together. We know, they said in unison, grinning. As they left the cafe, Justin pulled out his phone. I'm texting Thomas right now to tell him I met you. Don't you dare... Too late. Justin's phone immediately rang. He answered with a smirk. Hey, buddy. Yeah, I'm with Claire right now. Lovely woman. Can't imagine why you've been annoying her so much. He paused, listening. She's right here. Want to say hi? Before Claire could protest, Justin handed her the phone. Hello? She said reluctantly. Are you being held hostage? Thomas's voice came through, warm with amusement. Blink twice if you need rescue. Your friend is a menace. He is, but he's a good judge of character. If he likes you, that's high praise. He's trying to set us up, you know. I know. He texted me your location the second you sat down. Claire laughed. We're surrounded by scheming people. Terrible, isn't it? Thomas's voice softened. Claire, about last night, I overreacted. I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. I pushed too hard. The sincerity in his voice made Claire's heart skip. Maybe we could try again, the starting over thing? I'd like that. She could hear the smile in his words. Max has been depressed all morning. Bella withdrawal. Bella's been lying by the door. It's pathetic. Dog play date tomorrow, I promise to behave. You've never behaved a day in your life. True, but I'll try for you. After they hung up, Claire handed the phone back to Justin, who was watching her with undisguised glee. You're blushing, he observed. Shut up. This is amazing, Naomi, she's blushing. Leave her alone, Naomi said, but she was grinning too. Though we are absolutely having a double date soon. A what now? Double date. You, Thomas, me, Justin. It'll be fun. It'll be a disaster, Claire corrected. Exactly, Justin said cheerfully. The best kind. Claire should have been terrified. Instead, she found herself smiling all the way home. When she opened her apartment door, Bella greeted her with enthusiastic yips. Through the wall, she heard Max's answering bark. Your dad's best friend is a troublemaker, Claire told Bella. He's trying to push our humans together. Bella wagged her tail approvingly. Yeah, you would approve. Claire scooped up the poodle, feeling lighter than she had in days. One play date. What's the worst that could happen? Through the wall, Max barked again. And despite everything, Claire found herself laughing. Sunday afternoon arrived with perfect weather, the kind of autumn day that made Central Park look like a painting. Claire had agreed to meet Thomas there, telling herself it was purely for the dog's benefit. The fact that she'd changed her outfit 3 times had nothing to do with wanting to look good for him. Nothing at all. She found him waiting by the Bethesda fountain, Max sitting regally at his side. Thomas had ditched his usual suits for dark jeans and a grey Henley that did absolutely criminal things to his shoulders. When he spotted her, his entire face lit up in a way that made Claire's stomach flip. You came, he said, sounding genuinely pleased. I said I would. Claire released Bella's leash and the poodle immediately rushed to Max. The golden retriever greeted her with gentle play bows, his tail wagging so hard it was a blur. "They're adorable," Claire admitted, watching them tumble together on the grass. "They really are." Thomas moved closer to her, his voice quieter. "I'm glad you're here, not just for them." Claire felt heat creep up her neck. "Thomas, I know. Too much. Too fast. I'm working on the pacing thing." He flashed a self-deprecating smile. "Justin says I approach relationships like hostile takeovers. That sounds about right." "Ouch!" But he was laughing. "Come on, let's walk. I promise to only be moderately insufferable." They fell into step together, the dogs ranging ahead of them, chasing leaves and each other. For a while they walked in comfortable silence, the city noise fading into background music. "Can I ask you something?" Thomas said eventually. "And you can tell me to mind my own business if you want. That's never stopped you before." "Fair point." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Why architecture? What drew you to it?" Claire glanced at him, surprised by the genuine curiosity in his tone. "My mum was an architect. She used to take me to construction sites when I was little, show me how buildings grew from ideas into reality. She'd say that architects were dream builders." Her throat tightened. "She died when I was 16. Cancer." Thomas's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "I'm sorry. Every building I design, I think about whether she'd be proud. Whether I'm honoring what she taught me about creating spaces that matter." Claire looked at their joined hands, not pulling away. "That probably sounds silly." "It sounds beautiful." Thomas's thumb traced circles on her palm. "She'd be proud. Your work is brilliant." "You've barely seen my work." "I've seen enough. And I've seen the way you talk about it. Like every detail matters because it does. That's rare." They walked further, hands still intertwined, and Claire felt something shift between them. The playful antagonism was still there, but underneath it lay something deeper, more real. "Your turn," she said. "Why finance?" Thomas grimaced. "Significantly less poetic reason. I'm good with numbers, I like winning, and I have a pathological need to prove myself." "To who?" "My father, initially. He left when I was 12. Told my mum she was too boring for him, that he needed excitement." Thomas's jaw tightened. "Started a new family a year later. 2 perfect kids, perfect wife, perfect life. Meanwhile, my mum worked 3 jobs to keep our apartment." "Thomas." "I built this empire partly to prove I didn't need him, didn't need anyone. And then one day I realized I'd become exactly what I was trying to escape, a workaholic with no real connections." He looked down at Max, who'd returned to check on them. "Until this guy came along and reminded me that loyalty and love aren't weaknesses." Claire understood perfectly. They were both carrying scars, both afraid of trusting the wrong person. But maybe, just maybe, they could help each other heal. Ahead of them, a group of children played near a playground. Claire's expression brightened. "That's Sunshine Daycare over there. I volunteer there most weekends, helping with art projects." "Really? That's wonderful." They wandered closer, and one of the teachers spotted Claire. "Claire, perfect timing, come see the new art room." Claire followed eagerly, and Thomas trailed behind with Max. The daycare was modest but clean, clearly well loved by staff and children. The teacher led them to a newly renovated room with bright walls, proper lighting, and brand new supplies. "The renovation just finished last month," the teacher gushed. "Anonymous donor. Can you believe it? They covered everything, new floors, fresh paint, all these materials. It's a dream." Claire ran her hand over a table, admiring the craftsmanship. "This is incredible. Whoever donated this really understood what you needed." "They did." The contractor said the donor was very specific about the details. The teacher smiled. "Gave us hope, you know, knowing someone out there cares about these kids." As they left the playground, Claire was still talking animatedly about the renovation. Thomas was uncharacteristically quiet. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine, just thinking." They stopped at a coffee cart, and while Thomas ordered, Claire's phone rang. It was Margaret, the daycare director. "Claire, honey, I just heard you met our mystery donor." "What? No, I just saw the new room." "The contractor just called. Apparently someone saw the donor dropping off a check last month. Tall, expensive suit, had a golden retriever with him." Claire's heart stopped. She looked at Thomas, who was very carefully focused on adding sugar to his coffee. Claire? You there? Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Margaret. She hung up slowly. Thomas handed her a coffee, still not meeting her eyes. It was you, Claire said quietly. Thomas's shoulders tensed. I don't know what... Don't lie to me. You donated the money for the daycare renovation. He sighed, finally looking at her. How did you find out? Someone saw you. Thomas, that renovation cost over $50,000. It was worth it. He sat on a nearby bench, and Max immediately laid his head on Thomas's knee. I saw you there one Saturday, a few weeks after you moved in. You were helping kids paint, and you looked so happy, so genuinely engaged. Then I looked around and saw how badly they needed resources. He shrugged. So I helped. Why didn't you tell me? Because then you'd look at me exactly like you're looking at me now, like I'm some kind of hero. I'm not. I just have money I didn't earn sitting in accounts, and those kids needed supplies more than I needed another zero in my portfolio. Claire sat beside him, her mind reeling. This was the man she'd called arrogant, presumptuous, insufferable. This generous, thoughtful man who funded daycare renovations anonymously and looked embarrassed when caught. You're not what I expected, she said softly. Disappointing? Terrifying. She turned to face him. You're making it very hard to keep my walls up. Thomas's hand cupped her cheek, his touch gentle. Good. Because mine are already down, Claire. They came down the second you looked at me with those defiant eyes in the lobby and refused to be impressed. I was impressed. I just didn't want to be. And now? Now I'm more impressed. And more terrified. Thomas leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. We can be terrified together. For a moment, Claire thought he might kiss her. She wanted him to, desperately. But instead, he pressed his forehead to hers, letting the moment stretch between them like a promise. Slow, he murmured. We agreed on slow. I hate slow, Claire whispered. Me too. His laugh was shaky. But you're worth it. They stayed like that, wrapped in almost kisses and barely restrained wanting, while Max and Bella curled up at their feet in perfect contentment. Some things, Claire realized, were worth the wait, even if the waiting might actually kill her. Monday morning brought Claire face to face with the reality of working alongside a man she was developing very inconvenient feelings for. The office felt different now, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. She was reviewing lighting plans in the conference room when Thomas appeared in the doorway, 2 coffee cups in hand. Peace offering, he said, setting one in front of her. Caramel macchiato, extra shot, light foam. Claire stared at the cup. How did you know my coffee order? I pay attention. He settled into the chair across from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Also, I may have asked the barista at the coffee cart you visit every morning. That's borderline stalking. I prefer thoughtfully observant. His eyes sparkled with mischief. Besides, you tracked down my charity work through investigative means. We're even. That was different. Was it? Thomas leaned forward, his voice dropping to an intimate level. Claire, I want to know everything about you. Your coffee order is just the beginning. Her pulse quickened. We're at work. I'm aware. Doesn't change the fact that I spent all last night thinking about how close I came to kissing you in the park. Thomas, how close you wanted me to kiss you. Claire's breath caught. You're very confident. Am I wrong? No, he absolutely wasn't wrong, and they both knew it. But admitting it felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. Her phone buzzed, saving her from having to respond. A text from Naomi. Double date Friday night. No excuses. Justin's picking the restaurant. Let me guess, Thomas said, reading her expression. Our meddling friends? They want a double date Friday. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. I didn't say yes yet. Thomas stood, moving around the table until he was right beside her chair. He leaned down, one hand on the armrest, effectively caging her in. The position was dominant, possessive, and absolutely devastating to Claire's composure. Say yes, he murmured, his lips dangerously close to her ear. Say yes to Friday, to getting to know each other outside these walls, to seeing where this goes. Claire's hands gripped the armrests. This is highly unprofessional. I know. I don't care. His nose brushed her temple. Say yes, Claire. Yes, she whispered, then pushed him away before she did something stupid, like pull him down for a kiss. But we're taking separate cars. Why? Because if you pick me up, it's a real date. Separate cars maintain plausible deniability. Thomas laughed, the sound rich and warm. You're adorable when you're in denial. I'm not in denial, I'm being practical. Keep telling yourself that. He headed for the door, then paused. Claire, for what it's worth, I hope you stop being practical soon. I'd really like to kiss you properly. He left before she could respond, and Claire dropped her head to the table with a groan. This man was going to be the death of her. Thursday Friday night arrived far too quickly. Claire stood in front of her closet, having a crisis while Bella watched from the bed. It's not a date, she told the poodle. It's a friendly dinner with colleagues. Bella tilted her head skeptically. Okay, it's a date, but I'm not admitting that out loud. Claire pulled out a black dress, then put it back. Too formal. She tried a casual sweater and jeans. Too casual. Finally, she settled on a deep green wrap dress that hugged her curves without being obvious about it. This says, I'm confident and put together, but I definitely didn't spend 3 hours getting ready, Claire announced. Bella yawned. You're no help. The restaurant Justin had chosen was upscale Italian in Greenwich Village, intimate lighting, excellent wine list, the kind of place where conversations happened in low tones. Claire arrived first, which was part of her strategy. Arrive first. Establish emotional control. Don't let Thomas see how nervous she was. The strategy lasted exactly 3 seconds. Thomas walked in wearing dark slacks and a midnight blue button-down that made his eyes look like storm clouds. When he spotted her, his smile could have melted steel. You're early, he said, sliding into the booth beside her instead of across from her. So are you. I was hoping to get you alone before Justin and Naomi arrived. His thigh pressed against hers under the table. You look stunning. You look acceptable. Liar. His hand found hers under the table, fingers intertwining. You think I look better than acceptable. Your ego is showing. So is your attraction to me. Before Claire could formulate a comeback, Justin and Naomi arrived, both grinning like they'd won the lottery. Look at you two, Justin said, sliding into the opposite side of the booth, already holding hands. This is moving faster than I expected. We're not... Claire tried to pull her hand away, but Thomas held firm. We absolutely are, Thomas said calmly. Why pretend otherwise? Naomi beamed. I like this version of you, Thomas. Less corporate, more human. Claire's influence, Thomas said, squeezing her hand. She makes me want to be better. Oh my God, stop, Claire muttered, her cheeks flaming. Never, Thomas whispered in her ear. Dinner was simultaneously wonderful and torturous. Justin and Naomi kept the conversation flowing with funny stories and gentle teasing. Thomas was charming without being overbearing, his hand occasionally finding Claire's knee under the table, sending sparks through her nervous system. So, Claire, Naomi said over dessert, Justin tells me you do volunteer work with kids. At Sunshine Daycare, yes. Art projects mostly. Claire shot Thomas a look. Someone recently made a very generous donation to their renovation fund. Someone? Justin's eyes gleamed. Thomas, you sly dog, you didn't tell me about that. Thomas shrugged, looking uncomfortable. It wasn't worth mentioning. $50,000 isn't worth mentioning? Claire challenged. Not when you saw how happy those kids were with the new supplies. Thomas met her eyes. Some things are worth more than money. The table fell silent for a beat. Naomi reached across to squeeze Thomas's hand. You're a good man, Thomas Bradley. Don't let anyone tell you different. Claire already thinks I'm insufferable, Thomas said, but his eyes were on Claire, warm and questioning. I'm revising my assessment, Claire admitted quietly. You're only moderately insufferable now. Progress, Thomas murmured, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. After dinner, they stood outside the restaurant, the night air cool against heated skin. Justin and Naomi made excuses about an early morning and practically ran for a cab, leaving Thomas and Claire alone on the sidewalk. They're not subtle, Claire said. Not even a little. Thomas turned to face her, stepping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I'm glad they're not. This was the best night I've had in years. It was just dinner. It was you, laughing, talking, letting your guard down. His hand cupped her face. Do you have any idea how beautiful you are when you're not trying to maintain control? Claire's breath shook. Thomas, I want to kiss you so badly right now, but I meant what I said about slow. about doing this right. His forehead touched hers. Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me you feel this too. You're not crazy, Claire whispered. I feel it. It terrifies me, but I feel it. Good. He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, lingering there. Let me take you home. Properly this time, one car, real date protocol. That's against the rules. I'm very good at breaking rules. They drove back to their building in Thomas's car, the silence comfortable, charged. When they reached Claire's door, Thomas walked her all the way like a gentleman from another era. Thank you for tonight, he said softly, for taking a chance on this, on us. We're neighbors and colleagues. This could get complicated. It already is complicated. Might as well enjoy it. Claire laughed despite herself. You're impossible. But you like me anyway. Maybe a little. I'll take it. Thomas stepped back, putting safe distance between them. Good night, Claire. Good night, Thomas. She watched him walk to his penthouse entrance, then slipped inside her apartment. Bella greeted her with excited yips, and through the wall she heard Max's answering bark. Claire leaned against the door, smiling like a teenager with her first crush. This was dangerous. This was reckless. This was everything she'd sworn to avoid after David. But Thomas wasn't David. Thomas was generous and vulnerable, and made her laugh even when she wanted to strangle him. Thomas looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in any room, and maybe, just maybe, that was worth the risk. The renovation project hit a critical snag on Tuesday when the structural engineer discovered issues with the load-bearing walls on the executive floor. Claire spent 3 days redesigning the layout, and by Friday evening she was buried under blueprints, calculations, and enough coffee to fuel a small army. The office had emptied hours ago. Even Patricia had left with a concerned look and instructions to not work yourself to death. Claire barely noticed. This project was too important, both professionally and personally, to let fail. She was so focused on her drawings that she didn't hear the footsteps until Thomas spoke from the doorway. Please tell me you've eaten something today. Claire jumped, nearly knocking over her coffee. Thomas stood there in shirt sleeves, his tie loosened, looking unfairly attractive for someone who'd probably worked just as many hours as she had. I had something. She couldn't actually remember what. Something isn't food. Thomas held up a bag from her favorite Thai place. Pad see ew, spring rolls and mango sticky rice. Don't ask how I know your order. You're stalking me through food now? I prefer to think of it as comprehensive romantic research. He set the bag on the table, pushing aside her blueprints with careful precision. Eat, then we'll tackle this together. Thomas, you don't have to. I want to. He pulled up a chair beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. Besides, I'm invested in this project succeeding. Best architect I've ever worked with is designing it. Claire felt warmth spread through her chest. Flattery won't make the structural issues disappear. No, but brilliant minds working together might. He opened the food containers, the smell making Claire's stomach growl audibly. See? Your body agrees with me. They ate in companionable silence, and Claire was surprised by how natural it felt, sharing a late dinner surrounded by work, with a man who somehow made even fluorescent lighting seem romantic. Okay, Thomas said, wiping his hands and leaning over her blueprints. Show me what we're dealing with. For the next 2 hours they worked side by side. Thomas asked insightful questions, challenged her assumptions in ways that made her think differently, and occasionally made her laugh with dry observations about building code regulations. Who knew you were secretly an architecture nerd? Claire teased, watching him sketch out a potential support beam placement. I'm a nerd about everything I care about. His eyes met hers, the meaning clear. Thoroughness is kind of my thing. I've noticed. Have you? Thomas set down his pencil, his full attention shifting to her. What else have you noticed? The air between them thickened. Claire was acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how his hand rested inches from hers on the table, how his eyes had darkened with something that had nothing to do with architecture. I've noticed, Claire said slowly, that you're left-handed, you drink your coffee black, and you have a habit of running your hand through your hair when you're thinking. Observant. His hand moved to cover hers. I've noticed that you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating, you twist your hair around your finger when you're nervous, and right now, you're doing both. Claire hadn't even realized. She released her lip, started to move her hand from her hair, but Thomas caught it gently. "Don't stop on my account, it's adorable." "I'm not adorable, I'm a serious professional." "You can be both." His thumb traced circles on her palm, the touch sending electricity up her arm. "Claire, can I ask you something?" "That depends on the question. Why did you really take this job? You're talented enough to work anywhere. Why Bradley Financial?" Claire hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Because I needed to prove something to myself, that I could handle working with someone powerful, someone who could potentially hurt me, without falling apart, that I was stronger than my past." "And?" Thomas's voice was soft. "Are you?" "I'm getting there." She turned her hand, intertwining their fingers. "You're making it easier and harder at the same time." "How so?" "Easier because you're not what I expected. Harder because—" She took a breath. "Because I'm starting to care about you, and that terrifies me." Thomas's free hand cupped her face, tilting it toward him. "I'm terrified too. I've spent years avoiding this, avoiding feeling anything real. And then you showed up with your defensive walls and sharp tongue, and suddenly I couldn't think about anything else. They were so close now, barely inches apart." Claire could count his eyelashes, see the silver flecks in his grey eyes, feel the warmth of his breath. "We probably shouldn't do this at the office," Claire whispered, even as she leaned closer. "Terrible idea," Thomas agreed, his lips hovering over hers. "Absolutely inappropriate. We should stop. We absolutely should." Neither of them moved away. Thomas's hand slid into her hair, gentle but possessive. Claire's fingers curled into his shirt, pulling him closer. The world narrowed to this moment, this breath, this perfect, terrible, wonderful moment. "Oh, sorry." They sprang apart as the night security guard appeared in the doorway, his face bright red. "I didn't realize anyone was still here. Just doing my rounds." He backed away quickly. "I'll come back later. Much later. Maybe never. Good night." He practically ran down the hallway. Claire buried her face in her hands, mortified. "Oh my God. The security guard just caught us about to kiss." Thomas started laughing, deep, genuine laughter that shook his entire body. The look on his face, he's probably traumatized. "This isn't funny." "It's hilarious." Thomas pulled her hands from her face, still grinning. "Claire, we're adults. We're allowed to kiss. Not at work. Not when you're technically my boss." "Fair point." He stood, pulling her up with him. "Come on, let's get you home before we cause any more scandals." They gathered their things in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now, charged, anticipatory. The almost kiss hung between them like a promise. In the elevator, Thomas kept a careful distance, hands in his pockets like he didn't trust himself not to reach for her. "For the record," he said as they reached the lobby, "that would have been an amazing first kiss." "Second," Claire corrected. "We almost kissed in the park, too. Those don't count. Almost kisses are just torture." He held the door for her. "When I finally kiss you properly, Claire Morgan, there won't be any interruptions, no security guards, no phones, no second thoughts. Just you and me and all the time in the world." Claire's knees felt weak. "That's quite a promise." "I'm very good at keeping my promises." They walked to their building in comfortable silence, the city lights painting everything in gold. At her door, Thomas hesitated. "Thank you for tonight. For trusting me with your fears, for working with me, for almost kissing me. Thank you for the Thai food and the structural support. Both kinds." His laugh was warm. "Any time. Good night, Claire." "Good night, Thomas." Inside her apartment, Claire leaned against the door, her heart racing. Bella trotted over, tail wagging. "We almost kissed," Claire told her. "Like, really, almost. And it was perfect and terrible, and I wanted it so badly." Through the wall she heard Thomas's voice, muffled but distinct. "Max, buddy, I almost kissed her, and I'm pretty sure it would have ruined me for anyone else." Claire smiled, pressing her hand to the wall. On the other side, Thomas did the same. Their hands separated by inches of drywall, but connected by something far stronger. "Soon," they both whispered, and the waiting, somehow, made it all the sweeter. "You're conspiring against us, aren't you?" Claire said into the phone, watching Bella chase her tail in circles. Naomi's laugh crackled through the speaker. "I prefer aggressively matchmaking. Justin found this amazing house in the Hamptons. 4 bedrooms, private beach, perfect for a weekend getaway." 4 bedrooms means we'd each have our own space, right? Well, there might be a plumbing issue in 2 of the rooms. So unfortunate. You and Thomas will just have to share the main house while Justin and I take the guest cottage. Naomi, it's separate floors, very proper. He gets the master bedroom upstairs, you get the guest room on the main floor, completely respectable. Claire highly doubted anything about this weekend would be respectable, but she found herself agreeing anyway. Maybe it was time to stop fighting the inevitable and see what happened when they spent real time together, away from work and the city and all their carefully constructed boundaries. Maybe she was just tired of almost kisses and almost everything else. Friday afternoon, Thomas picked her up in a sleek black SUV, Max already occupying the back seat with enviable calm. When Claire appeared with Bella and an overnight bag, his smile was bright enough to rival the autumn sun. "Road trip," he announced, taking her bag. "I made a playlist. Please tell me it's not all financial podcasts. 50% financial podcasts, 50% songs I think you'd like. Compromise." The drive to the Hamptons took 2 hours through fall foliage so beautiful it hurt. Thomas's playlist was surprisingly perfect, a mix of indie rock, classic jazz, and yes, one financial podcast that Claire actually found interesting. They argued good-naturedly about everything from the best coffee shops in Manhattan to whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Thomas said yes, Claire said absolutely not. Max barked his agreement with Thomas. "You're ganging up on me," Claire protested, "using your dog for emotional manipulation. Max has strong opinions about fruit-based pizza toppings." Max would eat literally anything. As if to prove her point, Max stuck his head between the seats and licked Claire's cheek. She laughed, scratching his ears, and caught Thomas watching them with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. "What?" she asked softly. "Nothing. Just, you're beautiful when you laugh. Really laugh, without thinking about it." Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Keep your eyes on the road, Bradley." "Yes, ma'am." The house was stunning, a modern beach house with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Justin and Naomi were already there, setting up the kitchen with enough food for an army. "Welcome to paradise," Justin called out. "We've got steaks for the grill, wine, and absolutely no cellular service." "No service?" Claire checked her phone. 1 bar, flickering. "It's a feature, not a bug," Naomi said, hugging her. "Forces us to actually talk to each other. Revolutionary concept." That evening, they grilled steaks on the deck while the dogs played on the beach below. The sunset painted everything in gold and pink, and Claire felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. Thomas stood close enough that their arms brushed when he handed her wine, and she didn't move away. After dinner, Justin suggested a bonfire on the beach. They roasted marshmallows and told stories, and Claire learned that Thomas had once accidentally sent a very personal email to his entire company. He still wouldn't reveal the contents, and that he'd learned to cook because his mother worked so much he'd had to feed himself. "She sounds like an amazing woman," Claire said. "She is. Strongest person I know." Thomas poked at the fire. "She taught me that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard." "Is that what you're doing with me? Showing up?" His eyes found hers across the flames. "Every single day." Later, back at the house, Justin and Naomi made exaggerated yawns and announced they were heading to the guest cottage. "We'll be back for breakfast," Naomi said with a wink. "Don't do anything we wouldn't do." "That leaves a lot of options," Thomas muttered after they left. Claire laughed nervously. They were alone. Really alone in a beautiful house with a fireplace and wine, and absolutely no chaperones. "I should probably go to bed," she said, not moving. "Probably." Thomas didn't move either. "Want to sit on the deck for a while first?" I promised to keep my hands to myself. They settled on the outdoor sofa, a blanket thrown over their legs, Max and Bella curled up at their feet. The ocean sounds filled the comfortable silence. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said eventually. "About work. Anything. That deal you closed last month, the Peterson account." She turned to face him. "I heard what you said in that meeting, the way you convinced them to sign. It was brilliant, but it was also calculated. Like you knew exactly what to say to get what you wanted." Thomas's expression shuttered slightly. "That's my job, Claire, reading people, understanding what motivates them." "I know. But it made me wonder, do you do that with me? Say the right things to get the reaction you want?" The hurt that flashed across his face was genuine, unmistakable. "You think I'm manipulating you? I think you're very good at getting what you want." Thomas stood abruptly, pacing to the deck railing. "With clients, yes, that's business. But with you?" He turned, his eyes intense. "Claire, every word I've said to you has been real, sometimes painfully real. I don't have a strategy with you because I've never felt this before, this completely out-of-control feeling that terrifies and exhilarates me." "How do I know that's true?" "Because I'm a mess around you." His laugh was sharp. "I stalk your coffee order. I time my elevator trips to accidentally run into you. I volunteer information about myself that I've never told anyone except Justin. Do you know how many people know about my father? 3. You, Justin, and my mother. That's it." Claire stood slowly. "Thomas, you want to know the difference between business and you? In business, I'm in control. I have a plan, an exit strategy, a clear goal. With you, I have nothing. I'm completely vulnerable, and it scares the hell out of me. But I keep showing up anyway because the alternative, not having you in my life, is worse." The raw honesty in his voice cracked something open in Claire's chest. She crossed the deck to him, placed her hands on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm projecting my fears onto you. David used to say whatever he thought I wanted to hear, and I believed him. I don't want to make that mistake again. I'm not David." Thomas's hands covered hers. "I will never be David, and if I ever say something that feels false, call me on it immediately. I'd rather have you angry and honest than sweet and doubting me, even if I'm being unfair, especially then, because that means you care enough to be afraid of getting hurt, and I'd rather have your fear than your indifference." Claire rose on her toes, bringing their faces inches apart. "You're making it very hard to keep my walls up." "Good, tear them down, Claire, let me in. What if you break my heart? What if you break mine first?" His forehead touched hers. "We're both taking a risk here, both terrified, but I'm willing to jump if you are." For a long moment they stood like that, breathing the same air, hearts beating in sync. Then Claire made a decision. "I'm jumping," she whispered. Thomas's smile was brilliant, relieved. "Yeah? Yeah, but if you catch me, you better hold on tight. I don't give second chances. I don't need them. Getting it right the first time." He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. "Thank you for trusting me." They returned to the sofa, this time with Claire tucked against Thomas's side, his arm around her shoulders. They talked for hours about dreams, fears, embarrassing childhood stories. Thomas admitted he'd had braces and terrible acne in high school. Claire confessed she'd been terrified of taking this job because she knew somehow that meeting him would change everything. "You knew?" Thomas asked, surprised. "I saw your photo on the company website. You looked arrogant and powerful, and exactly like the kind of man I'd sworn to avoid. And then I took the job anyway." "Why?" "Because some part of me knew I needed to face that fear, that if I spent my whole life running from powerful men because of one bad experience, I'd miss out on—" She gestured between them. "This, whatever this is." "This," Thomas said firmly, "is me falling for you. Hard and fast and completely." Claire's breath caught. "Thomas, I know it's soon. I know we're still figuring things out, but I've never been good at hiding my feelings, and I'm not going to start now. I'm falling for you, Claire Morgan, and I think you might be falling for me too." He was right. She was falling, had been falling since that first elevator encounter, maybe even before. But saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. "I might be," she admitted quietly. "A little. I'll take it." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "For now." They fell asleep on the sofa, wrapped in blankets and each other, Max and Bella curled up as close as they could get. When Naomi and Justin found them in the morning, they took approximately 50 photos before waking them up. "You two are disgustingly cute," Naomi announced, shoving coffee at them. Claire, still fuzzy with sleep and warmth, just smiled into Thomas's shoulder. Maybe falling wasn't so scary after all, not when someone was already there to catch you. The week after the Hamptons trip, Claire floated through life in a haze of happiness that slightly terrified her. Thomas was attentive without being overwhelming, texting her random thoughts throughout the day, leaving coffee on her desk with ridiculous notes. Fuel for brilliance, TB, and finding excuses to brush past her in the office that left her skin tingling for hours. They hadn't kissed yet, not properly, but the anticipation was building to almost unbearable levels. Every glance felt charged, every accidental touch like lightning. Claire was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. Then Wednesday happened. She woke to Bella whimpering in her crate, unusual for the normally cheerful poodle. When Claire opened it, Bella barely lifted her head, her eyes dull and unfocused. "Hey, baby girl, what's wrong?" Claire lifted her gently, her stomach dropping when she felt how warm Bella was. And when she set her down, Bella's legs wobbled. Panic set in immediately. Claire grabbed her phone, hands shaking as she called the emergency vet. "My dog is lethargic, feverish, and can barely stand. I'm bringing her in right now." She threw on yesterday's clothes, grabbed Bella and her purse, and was out the door in under 3 minutes. In the elevator, Bella whimpered softly, and Claire felt tears burning her eyes. "You're going to be fine," she whispered, pressing a kiss to Bella's head. "You have to be fine." The emergency vet clinic was 15 minutes away, the longest 15 minutes of Claire's life. She ran every yellow light, double-parked outside, and burst through the doors like a woman possessed. "I called about my poodle. She's sick. She can't stand—" "Ms. Morgan," a vet tech appeared immediately. "Bring her back." The next 2 hours were a blur of examinations, blood tests, and increasingly worried expressions from the veterinary staff. Claire sat in the waiting room, her phone clutched in her hand, Bella's empty collar in her lap. She should call someone. She didn't know what she should do. Her phone buzzed. "Thomas. Where are you? You missed our 9 a.m. meeting." Claire stared at the message, then burst into tears. She called him. She didn't know why. He was her boss. This was unprofessional. She was crying in a vet clinic over her dog, but she called him anyway. "Claire, what's wrong?" His voice shifted from curious to alarmed in a heartbeat. "It's Bella. She's sick, really sick. They don't know what's wrong yet, and I'm scared. And I know this is stupid to call you, but I didn't know who else." "Where are you?" She gave him the address, still crying. "Thomas, you don't have to—" "I'm already in the car. Hang on, okay? I'm coming." He hung up, and Claire sat there, stunned by how much relief flooded through her. He was coming. She wasn't alone. 20 minutes later, Thomas burst through the clinic doors, still in his work suit, slightly out of breath. Max was with him, pulling at the leash to get to Claire. "Any news?" Thomas asked, dropping into the chair beside her. Claire shook her head, unable to speak. Thomas pulled her into his arms without hesitation, and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing into his expensive shirt. "She's all I have," Claire choked out. "My mum gave her to me before she died. Bella's my last connection to her." "I know." Thomas's hand stroked her hair. "She's going to be okay. She has to be, because she has you fighting for her." Dr. Martinez emerged half an hour later, her expression serious. "Ms. Morgan, Bella's stable, but we need to keep her overnight for observation and IV fluids. We think it might be a severe gastrointestinal infection, possibly from something she ate. We're running more tests to be sure. Can I see her?" "Of course." Bella looked so small in the hospital crate, an IV line in her tiny leg, but her tail wagged weakly when she saw Claire, and that small movement made Claire's heart crack open. "Hey, baby girl," Claire whispered, carefully petting Bella's head. "You scared me." Bella licked her hand, then settled back down with a soft sigh. Thomas stood in the doorway, Max sitting perfectly still beside him, both watching the poodle with obvious concern. "Max is worried about his girlfriend," Thomas said softly. Despite everything, Claire laughed through her tears. "Tell him she's going to be fine. She's tough. Like her mom." Dr. Martinez cleared her throat gently. "We'll call immediately if anything changes. But the best thing for Bella right now is rest. You should go home, get some sleep." "I'm staying." Claire's voice was firm. She shouldn't be alone. The visiting hours— "I'm staying," Claire repeated, her tone brooking no argument. Dr. Martinez looked at Thomas, who shrugged. "She's staying. Is there a place where she can sleep? I'll make sure she eats and rests." "There's a family room down the hall. It has a couch." "Perfect." Claire wanted to argue that Thomas didn't need to stay, but the truth was she desperately wanted him there. So she just nodded gratefully when he guided her to the family room and told her to sit while he went to get food. He returned with Thai food, her favorite, and insisted she eat at least half before he'd let her check on Bella again. "You're bossy," Claire said, but she ate anyway. Someone has to take care of you while you're taking care of her. Thomas sat beside her on the uncomfortable couch. Claire, why didn't you tell me Bella was from your mom? It never came up. Claire set down her food. Mom got sick when I was 15. By 16, she was bedridden. She gave me Bella as a puppy, said I needed something to love that would love me back unconditionally. 3 months later, she was gone. I'm so sorry. Bella got me through it. Through high school, college, the disaster with David. She's been the one constant in my life. If I lose her... Claire's voice broke. Thomas pulled her close again. You won't. And even if the worst happens, which it won't, you won't be alone. You have me now. We've only known each other a few months. Time doesn't matter when it's right. He tilted her chin up. I meant what I said in the Hamptons. I'm all in, Claire. That includes the hard parts, the scary parts, especially those parts. Claire searched his face, finding only sincerity and something deeper, something that looked a lot like love. I don't know how to do this, she whispered, how to let someone in this much. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out together. They checked on Bella every hour through the night. Dr. Martinez stopped by at midnight with an update. Bella was responding well to fluids and antibiotics. By 3 a.m., the poodle was sleeping peacefully, her fever down. In the family room, Thomas had somehow made the lumpy couch comfortable with blankets he'd charmed from a night nurse. Claire curled against his side, exhausted and emotionally drained. Thank you for staying, she murmured. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Thomas pressed a kiss to her forehead. When you called me, crying and scared, all I could think was that I needed to get to you. Nothing else mattered, not work, not meetings, nothing. Justin's probably wondering where you disappeared to. Justin knows exactly where I am. I texted him that there was an emergency with Bella. He told me to take as long as needed and that he'd clear my schedule for tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. You have the investor meeting. Justin can handle it. You need me more. Claire's eyes filled with tears again, happy ones this time. I do need you. I hate admitting it, but I do. Good. Because I need you too. His arms tightened around her. You've made me want things I didn't think I could have. A real relationship. Someone to come home to, maybe even a family someday. Thomas, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But when I think about my future now, you're in it. You and Bella and Max, all of us figuring out this messy, beautiful thing together. Claire turned to face him, her hand cupping his jaw. You're making me fall in love with you. You know that, right? His breath caught. Am I? Yes. And it terrifies me and thrills me, and I don't know what to do with it. Fall, Thomas said simply. Just fall. I'll catch you, I promise. They sat like that, foreheads touching, breathing each other in. The moment was tender, intimate, more meaningful than any kiss could have been. When Bella's better, Thomas murmured, I'm taking you on a proper date. Fancy restaurant, flowers, the works. I'd rather have Thai food and a walk in the park with the dogs. Then that's what we'll do, whatever makes you happy. You make me happy, Claire admitted, even when you're being insufferable. Especially when I'm being insufferable, Thomas corrected with a grin. Claire laughed softly, then grew serious. My mum would have liked you. She always said I needed someone who could keep up with me, challenge me, make me laugh. I wish I could have met her. Me too. They dozed off like that, wrapped around each other, finding comfort in closeness. When Dr. Martinez woke them at 7 a.m., it was with good news. Bella's fever was completely gone. She was eating and barking for her mum. Claire ran to Bella's crate, laughing and crying when the poodle launched herself at her with more energy than she'd had in 24 hours. See, Thomas said, Max pressing against his legs as they watched the reunion. Told you she was tough. Thank you, Claire said, turning to him with Bella in her arms. For everything. For staying. For being here. For caring. Always. Thomas scratched Bella's ears. You scared us, little one. Don't do that again. Bella licked his face enthusiastically, and Thomas laughed, that genuine warm laugh that Claire was starting to love more than anything. As they left the clinic together, Bella healthy and Max ecstatic, Claire realized something. She wasn't just falling anymore. She had already fallen completely and irrevocably for Thomas Bradley. And for once, being vulnerable didn't feel like weakness. It felt like strength. The week after Bella's recovery should have been perfect. Thomas had insisted Claire take 2 days off to rest and spend time with her recovering poodle. He'd sent flowers, food, and ridiculous get-well cards addressed to Bella that made Claire laugh until she cried. They'd settled into an easy rhythm. Morning elevator encounters that ended with lingering looks, lunch meetings that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with learning each other's favorite things, and evenings where they'd walk the dogs together and talk until the city lights blinked on around them. Claire felt happier than she had in years, which of course meant something had to go catastrophically wrong. It started on Monday morning with an email from corporate auditing. Ms. Morgan, we need to schedule a meeting regarding discrepancies in project billing. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience. Claire stared at her screen, confused. Discrepancies. She'd been meticulous with every invoice, every receipt. There couldn't be any errors. She called the auditing department immediately. This is Claire Morgan. I received your email about billing discrepancies. Ah, yes, Ms. Morgan. The auditor's voice was professionally cool. We've discovered some irregularities in the Bradley financial renovation project. Duplicate invoices, charges for materials that weren't delivered, that sort of thing. Claire's stomach dropped. That's impossible. I've personally verified every invoice. We'd like to discuss this in person. Can you come to our office this afternoon? Of course. She hung up, her hands shaking. This didn't make sense. She'd been so careful, triple-checking everything because she knew how important this project was. How could there be irregularities? Her phone buzzed. Thomas, coffee in 10 minutes? I need my morning dose of you looking annoyed at me. Any other day, the text would have made her smile. Today, it made her want to cry. She should tell him about the audit. But what if he thought she was incompetent? Or worse, dishonest? No. She'd handle this herself, clear it up, and then tell him once it was resolved. Claire, rain check? Swamped with work. Thomas, everything okay? Claire, fine, just busy. She hated lying to him, but she needed to understand what was happening before she pulled him into this mess. The audit meeting was a nightmare. They showed her invoices she'd never seen before, duplicate charges for materials, inflated labor costs, mysterious contractor fees, all bearing her signature. Except they weren't her signatures. They were close, but Claire knew her own handwriting. These were forgeries. I didn't approve these, she said firmly. Someone else had to have access to my files. The lead auditor, a severe woman named Ms. Chen, looked skeptical. You're saying someone forged your signature on multiple invoices over several weeks? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Who has access to your files? Anyone in the office, theoretically. The project files are on the shared server. Ms. Chen made a note. We'll need to investigate further. In the meantime, we're required to report this to Mr. Bradley and suspend the project pending resolution. Suspend? But we're nearly finished. I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan, but these are serious allegations. Fraud, embezzlement. I didn't embezzle anything. Claire's voice rose. I'm telling you, someone set me up. That will be determined during the investigation. You're not being formally accused at this time, but we recommend you consult with legal counsel. Claire walked out of the meeting in a daze. Legal counsel, investigation, fraud. The words kept echoing in her head, each one more terrifying than the last. She made it back to her temporary office before the tears came. This couldn't be happening. She'd worked so hard, been so careful. Who would do this to her? And why? A knock on the door made her quickly wipe her eyes. Come in. Thomas entered, his expression concerned. Patricia said you were called to auditing this morning. What's going on? Claire's carefully constructed composure crumbled. There are discrepancies in the project billing. Fraudulent invoices. They think I did it. Thomas went very still. Explain. She told him everything. The duplicate invoices, the forged signatures, the suspension. With every word, she watched his face become more unreadable, more closed off. The distance between them felt like miles instead of feet. You didn't tell me about the audit meeting, Thomas said quietly when she finished. I wanted to handle it myself first. Handle it yourself? His laugh was bitter. Claire, this is my company, my project. You should have told me immediately. I was trying to protect you. Protect me, or protect yourself. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. If someone's embezzling from my company, using your credentials to do it, that's something I need to know. Not hours later after you've talked to auditing. Claire felt like she'd been slapped. "You think I did it?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to. It's written all over your face." She stood, anger replacing hurt. "After everything, the Hamptons, Bella, all those late nights working together, you still don't trust me. That's not fair. This is my company's money, Claire. I have a responsibility to investigate." "Then investigate. But don't stand there looking at me like I'm a criminal when you know I would never do this." "I don't know what to think." Thomas's composure finally cracked. "We've known each other for 3 months. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. I want to trust you, but I also have hundreds of employees whose livelihoods depend on this company. I can't just ignore—" "Get out." Claire's voice was ice. "Claire, get out." Tears streamed down her face. "You're right. 3 months is nothing. Clearly not enough time for you to know that I'm not a thief. Not enough for you to give me the benefit of the doubt. So get out of my office, Mr. Bradley. Let's keep this professional, since that's obviously all it ever was to you." Thomas looked like she'd physically struck him. "You don't mean that." "Don't tell me what I mean. You made your choice. The company over me. That's fine. That's probably the smart business decision, but don't expect me to pretend it doesn't hurt." For a long moment they stared at each other, all the warmth and laughter and tenderness of the past weeks evaporating into painful silence. "I'll handle the investigation personally," Thomas said finally, his voice professionally neutral. "You'll be treated fairly." "How generous." He flinched, then turned and left without another word. Claire collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Through the wall she heard Max whining. Thomas must have brought him to the office. Even the dogs knew something was terribly wrong. That evening, Claire sat in her apartment with Bella, staring at her phone. No texts from Thomas, no calls, nothing. Justin called instead. "Claire, I heard what happened. Thomas is losing his mind, by the way. He's been pacing his office for 3 hours. Good. That's not fair. You know he's just trying to do the right thing." "The right thing would have been to trust me," Claire's voice broke. "I fell in love with him, Justin. And the first time things got hard, he chose business over me. He's scared. His father's embezzlement nearly destroyed his mother. Finding out someone might be stealing from him, it triggers—" Claire sat up straight. "What did you say?" "Thomas's father didn't just leave. He embezzled from his own company, left Thomas's mom with the debt. That's why she had to work 3 jobs. Thomas rebuilt everything from nothing, and the idea that someone might be stealing from him, he never told me that." Claire felt sick. All those conversations about his father, and he'd never mentioned the embezzlement. "He doesn't talk about it, ever. I probably shouldn't have told you, but you need to understand. This isn't about not trusting you. It's about his worst nightmare coming true." After they hung up, Claire sat in the dark, Bella curled in her lap. She understood Thomas's fear now, but it didn't change the fact that he'd doubted her, that when push came to shove, he'd chosen to investigate rather than defend. Through the wall she heard Thomas talking to Max, his voice muffled but unmistakably sad. They were both miserable, both hurt, both too stubborn to reach out. And somewhere out there, someone was laughing at how perfectly they'd destroyed the relationship they'd worked so hard to sabotage. Claire just had to figure out who and why. Claire spent 3 sleepless nights reviewing every document, every email, every piece of evidence. She wouldn't let whoever did this destroy her career or her reputation. On Thursday morning, she marched into Thomas's office without knocking. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled shirt, and Max lying dejectedly at his feet. When he saw her, something vulnerable flashed across his face before his professional mask slammed back into place. "I found something," Claire said, dropping a stack of printed emails on his desk. "The fraudulent invoices were all submitted on days I wasn't in the office. And look at the IP addresses. They came from a computer in accounting, not my workstation." Thomas grabbed the papers, scanning them rapidly. "This is good. Really good. I also checked the security footage. Want to guess who accessed my files after hours?" Before Claire could answer, Patricia burst in. "Mr. Bradley, we have a problem. Ms. Chen is calling an emergency board meeting. She's recommending termination of the renovation contract and legal action against Ms. Morgan." Claire's stomach dropped. Thomas stood so fast his chair rolled backward. "Like hell she is." His voice was steel. When's the meeting? 10 minutes. Conference room A. Thomas looked at Claire and something passed between them. An understanding, a choice. Come with me. We're ending this now. The conference room was packed with board members, all looking at Claire with varying degrees of suspicion. Ms. Chen sat at the head of the table, her expression triumphant. Mr. Bradley, this is highly irregular. Miss Morgan shouldn't be present during... Claire stays. Thomas's tone brooked no argument. Because she's innocent, and I can prove it. He presented Claire's evidence methodically, demolishing each of Ms. Chen's accusations. The IP addresses, the security footage showing someone else accessing Claire's files, the timeline, inconsistencies. Furthermore, Thomas continued, his voice calm but lethal, I've had my personal security team investigating. The fraudulent invoices were created by Sandra Mitchell in accounting, who, coincidentally, is Ms. Chen's niece. The funds were funneled to a shell company owned by Ms. Chen's husband. The room erupted. Ms. Chen's face went white. You have no proof. I have bank records, emails, and a signed confession from Sandra, who's currently cooperating with authorities in exchange for immunity. Thomas's eyes were ice. You tried to frame an innocent woman to cover your embezzlement. Security is waiting outside to escort you to the police. As security led Ms. Chen away, the board members scrambled to apologize to Claire. She barely heard them. She was too focused on Thomas, who stood with his back to everyone, hands braced on the window frame. When the room finally emptied, Claire approached him slowly. You investigated her, not me. Of course I did. Thomas turned, and the raw emotion in his eyes nearly broke her. I never thought you did it, Claire, not for a second. But I was terrified of my judgment being clouded by my feelings, of missing something because I care about you too much. So I acted like a professional idiot instead of the man who's in love with you. Claire's breath caught. Thomas, I chose wrong. I should have defended you publicly from the start, should have told everyone that you were innocent because I know you. I know your character, your integrity. Instead, I hurt you because I was scared of being my father, trusting the wrong person, being made a fool. Justin told me about the embezzlement. Of course he did. Thomas laughed shakily. Claire, I'm so sorry. I let my past damage our present. Can you forgive me? Claire crossed the distance between them. You just took down a corrupt auditor to protect me. You believed in me even when I thought you didn't. You literally chose me over playing it safe. Always, I'll always choose you. Then stop apologizing and kiss me already. Thomas cupped her face in his hands. About damn time. When their lips finally met, it was everything. Desperate and tender, passionate and sweet. 3 months of wanting and waiting, exploding into one perfect moment. Thomas kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. Claire kissed him back like she'd never let him go. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Thomas rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Claire Morgan. I love you too, you impossible man. Outside the conference room, Max and Bella sat pressed against the glass door, tails wagging. Finally, their humans had figured it out. The annual Bradley Financial Charity Gala arrived 2 weeks after Thomas and Claire's first real kiss. They'd been inseparable since. Stolen kisses in his office, long evenings tangled together on her couch, morning elevator rides that made them perpetually late. But they hadn't told anyone yet. Claire wanted to keep it private, sacred, just theirs for a little while longer, which made walking into the gala alone feel strangely lonely. The ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, elegant couples, champagne flowing freely. Claire wore an emerald silk gown that made her feel like someone else entirely, someone confident, sophisticated, definitely not someone who'd once thrown a stapler at Thomas's head during a heated design discussion. Claire! Naomi appeared in a stunning red dress. You look amazing. Where's Thomas? Hosting duties. I'll find him later. You two are adorable. Justin says Thomas can't go 5 minutes without mentioning you. Before Claire could respond, she heard a voice that made her blood run cold. Claire? Claire Morgan? She turned slowly. David stood there with Jessica, the colleague he'd cheated with, both looking insufferably smug. David? Claire's voice was arctic. What are you doing here? Jessica's firm handles Bradley Financial's legal work. Small world, right? His smile was all teeth. You look good. Single life agrees with you. The implications stung. Before Claire could formulate a cutting response, she spotted Thomas across the room talking with investors. An absolutely terrible, impulsive idea formed in her mind. Claire grabbed a passing waiter. "Is that Mr. Bradley over there?" "Yes, ma'am." "Could you tell him his girlfriend needs him? Emergency." 3 minutes later, Thomas materialized at her side, concern etched on his face. "Claire, what's wrong?" She grabbed his arm, rose on her toes and whispered quickly, "My ex is here with the woman he cheated with. Play along, please." Understanding flashed in Thomas's eyes. His entire demeanor shifted, possessive hand settling on her waist, warm smile curving his lips. "Sorry I left you alone, darling," he said loud enough for David to hear. "Investors cornered me." David's smile faltered. "I didn't realize you were seeing someone." "Thomas Bradley." Thomas extended his free hand while keeping Claire tucked against his side. "And you are?" "David Chen, Claire's ex-boyfriend." "Ah." Thomas's smile sharpened. "The idiot. Claire's mentioned you." Jessica's eyes widened. "You're dating Thomas Bradley?" "The Thomas Bradley? Surprised someone would want me after David?" Claire asked sweetly. "So was I initially. Then I realized some men actually appreciate intelligence and loyalty." Thomas pressed a kiss to her temple. "Can you blame me? She's brilliant, beautiful, and puts me in my place daily." For the next excruciating 10 minutes, Thomas played the devoted boyfriend flawlessly. Casual touches, inside jokes, the kind of easy intimacy that couldn't be faked. David grew increasingly uncomfortable, while Jessica looked murderous. Finally, David made a comment about people moving on quickly, and something in Thomas snapped. "Quickly?" He turned to face David fully. "Claire told me what you did, how you betrayed her, humiliated her. She deserves someone who recognizes her worth, who would never dream of cheating. Someone like me." Then he cupped Claire's face and kissed her. The kiss started as performance, convincing, passionate, designed to make a point. But somewhere between the first touch of his lips and the second heartbeat, it transformed into something real. Thomas's hand slid into her hair, Claire's fingers gripped his jacket, and the entire ballroom faded away. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, David and Jessica had disappeared. "Sorry," Thomas whispered against her lips. "Had to be convincing." "Liar," Claire smiled. "That kiss was very real. Maybe I'm tired of pretending we're just colleagues." He intertwined their fingers. "Maybe I want everyone to know you're mine." "Possessive." "Absolutely. Problem. Not even a little." Thomas pulled her onto the dance floor, and as they swayed together under the chandeliers, Claire realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of love, not of trust, not of falling. Because Thomas had already caught her, and he wasn't letting go. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, official and terrifying. Estate of Margaret Whitmore. Contested inheritance. Claire's hands shook as she read. A distant cousin was challenging the will, claiming Margaret wasn't of sound mind when she'd left Claire the apartment. With legal fees estimated at $50,000 minimum, Claire knew she couldn't fight it. She'd have to leave. Leave the apartment, leave the building, leave Thomas next door where their walls touched, and their dogs played, and their lives had become beautifully intertwined. She told Thomas that evening, trying to keep her voice steady. They sat on his penthouse terrace, the city spread below them like scattered diamonds. "I'll find another place, it's fine. We'll make it work." "Marry me." Claire's head snapped up. "What?" "Marry me. Then the apartment becomes marital property. Problem solved." "Thomas, that's insane. We've been together for 3 months. I don't care. I love you. I want to marry you eventually anyway." "Why not now?" "Because marriage isn't a solution to a legal problem." Claire stood, pacing. "I won't let you do something that drastic, just to save my apartment." The argument continued for an hour, both of them stubborn, both terrified of losing what they'd built. Finally, exhausted, Claire went home. 2 days later, her lawyer called. "Ms. Morgan, someone paid your legal fees, all of them. The firm handling the case said an anonymous donor covered everything." Claire knew immediately. She stormed up to Thomas's penthouse, fury and love and frustration warring inside her. She pounded on his door. Rain had started falling, matching her turbulent emotions. Thomas opened it, took one look at her face and sighed. "You found out." "How dare you!" Claire pushed past him into the apartment. "Pay my lawyers without asking?" Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? Like someone cares about you? Like you're not alone? Thomas closed the door. Claire, I won't apologize for helping. It's not about the help. It's about you making decisions about my life without including me. Rain dripped from her hair, her coat. I'm not some damsel who needs rescuing. I know that. Thomas ran his hands through his hair. But I love you, and watching you stress about losing your home was killing me. I have the money. Why shouldn't I use it? Because I need to stand on my own. Why? Why do you have to do everything alone? He moved closer, his voice breaking. Claire, I'm not trying to control you or diminish you. I'm trying to be your partner. Partners help each other. What if this doesn't work out? Then I owe you. You owe me nothing. Even if we crashed and burned tomorrow, which we won't, I'd still have paid those fees. Because you deserve to keep your home, the last connection to your mother. Because you matter to me more than money ever could. Claire's anger crumbled. I'm scared. Scared of needing you too much. Then be scared with me. Thomas cupped her face. Because I'm terrified too. Terrified of losing you, of not being enough, of screwing this up like I almost did during the audit. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. The kiss was inevitable, desperate, consuming. Months of restraint finally breaking. Claire pulled him closer, rain-soaked and trembling. Thomas lifted her easily, carrying her toward his bedroom. Are you sure? He whispered against her lips. I've never been more sure of anything. What followed was tender and passionate, vulnerable and intense. Thomas worshipped every inch of her skin like she was precious, irreplaceable. Claire gave herself to him completely, trusting him with every part of her heart she'd kept locked away. Afterward, tangled in expensive sheets with city lights painting patterns on their skin, Claire traced circles on his chest. I love you, she whispered, even when you're an impossible, overbearing, wonderful man. Thomas kissed her forehead. I love you too, even when you're a stubborn, independent, magnificent woman. Through the walls, they heard Max and Bella's happy barks. Even the dogs approved. Everything had changed, and somehow that was exactly right. 1 year later, the rooftop terrace of Manhattan's most exclusive building had been transformed into a wedding venue. White flowers everywhere, string lights twinkling as the sun set, and 2 very important guests of honor wearing custom bow ties. Max stood proudly at the altar, a small pillow with rings attached to his collar. Bella waited at the entrance, a delicate flower crown perched between her ears, ready to accompany the bride. I can't believe we're doing this, Claire said, smoothing her ivory dress. It was simple, elegant, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd once imagined. Perfect. Naomi adjusted Claire's veil, beaming. Believe it. You're marrying the love of your life on the roof where you both live. It's ridiculously romantic. It's ridiculous, period. But Claire was smiling. The ceremony was small, just close friends. Patricia from the office and Claire's aunt who'd traveled from Seattle. Justin stood beside Thomas as best man, while Naomi served as maid of honor. When Claire walked down the makeshift aisle with Bella, trotting importantly beside her, Thomas's eyes filled with tears. He didn't even try to hide them. You're crying, Claire whispered when she reached him. You're beautiful. I'm allowed to cry. The officiant cleared his throat. Shall we begin? Thomas's vows were perfect and completely him. I promise to irritate you every single day for the rest of our lives, to leave coffee on your desk, to time my elevator trips to coincide with yours, and to love you so completely that you'll never doubt you're the most important thing in my world. Claire laughed through her tears. I promise to call you insufferable at least 3 times a week, to challenge your ideas, roll my eyes at your arrogance and love you so fiercely that you'll never feel alone again. When they kissed as husband and wife, Max barked his approval, and Bella spun in excited circles, sending flower petals flying. The reception lasted until midnight, filled with laughter, dancing, and Justin drunkenly confessing he was planning to propose to Naomi next month. 9 months after the wedding, Claire woke at 3 a.m. with contractions. Thomas! Thomasa! She shook him awake. It's time. Thomas bolted upright, immediately in crisis mode. Okay. Hospital. Bag. Keys. Dogs. Dogs? Max and Bella. They can't miss this. He was already pulling on clothes, completely serious. Their family. They need to meet their brother or sister. Thomas Bradley, dogs cannot go to the maternity ward. But, no buts. Get me to the hospital now. The ride there was chaos. Thomas running every red light, Claire timing contractions, and Thomas still insisting the dogs should be included somehow. Maybe they allow service dogs, he suggested desperately. Our dogs are not service dogs. Max provides emotional support. Thomas. 12 hours later, baby Grace Margaret Bradley entered the world with her father's grey eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. Thomas held her like she was made of glass, tears streaming down his face. She's perfect, he whispered. You're perfect. 3 months later, the family gathered on the penthouse terrace. Thomas cradled Grace, while Claire watched from the lounge chair, her heart so full it might burst. Max and Bella lay on either side of the baby's bassinet like furry guardians. Remember when you thought I was insufferable? Thomas asked, gently rocking their daughter. You are insufferable, but you're my insufferable. Best compliment ever. Grace yawned, tiny fist curling around Thomas's finger. Below them the city sparkled with possibility. Above them, stars began appearing in the twilight sky. This love story had started with 2 dogs who fell in love in a lobby, dragging their stubborn humans along for the ride. It had survived misunderstandings, legal battles, and enough sexual tension to power the entire building. And now, on this terrace where they'd married, they had everything. Love, laughter, family, and 2 dogs, who definitely thought they'd orchestrated the whole thing. Think they'll write stories about us someday? Claire mused. The neighbours who fell in love. Thomas kissed her softly. I hope so. Everyone deserves a love story this good. Max barked his agreement, and Bella, as always, had the last word, a gentle yip that seemed to say, You're welcome, humans. You're welcome. Leave your comment and share this story with someone special. It truly helps us keep bringing new stories to you. And if you want to follow every chapter of this emotional journey, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support makes all the difference.